Author Jennifer Hills starts her journey through the country to Mockingbird Trail, the cabin she rented, to get away from the chaos of the city and get inspiration for her next book. On her way, she stops by a store to speak to the manager Earl, who owns Mockingbird Trail. They chit-chat a bit, and the old man gives her keys and directions to the cabin as it sits a long way out of the town, in the middle of nowhere. After driving a few miles more, she stops by the gas station to get some gas and meets local men Stanley and Andy hanging around and amusing themselves. Then, Jennifer asks Johnny, the gas station manager, for directions to the cabin, and he explains that she missed the right turn and points her to the right way. Johnny then hits on Jennifer with corny lines, and she laughs him off, leaving him embarrassed and to be made fun of by his friends Stanley and Andy, and starts writing her book. The next morning, Jennifer rises early and sets out for her morning run, during which she discovers a dilapidated, abandoned cabin a few miles away. She goes through it and finds old personal belongings of the ex-owners, which spooks her. Jennifer returns from her morning run and notices that the plumbing in her bathroom is not working properly, so she calls the cabin's owner, who promises to send a plumber. She accidentally drops her phone in the toilet, leaving her without any means of communication. After a short wait, Matthew, an intellectually disabled plumber, comes and fixes the plumbing. Jennifer, feeling very excited and grateful, gives Matthew an innocent peck on the cheek, which makes him unexpectedly nervous and causes him to run off without even taking his payment. Back in town, Johnny, Stanley, Andy, and Matthew hang out and catch up in the woods. Stanley boasts that he has a video of Jennifer, whom they nicknamed the City Girl, and shows them revealing footage of Jennifer, taken without her knowledge from the night before. They then go on to discuss Jennifer's demeanor and irrationally conclude that she must think that she is better than them. Andy and Stanley then tease Matthew about the kiss Jennifer gave him, which annoys Johnny, who declares that the only reason a girl like that could come to a place like this on her own is to entice men, and promises Matthew, who was defending Jennifer, that he will show him how to be with her. That night, Jennifer takes a break from writing to have a drink and smoke some marijuana, and then falls asleep on the couch. She wakes up late at night and proceeds to go to bed, only to be utterly horrified to find a selfie of Johnny and his friends on her laptop. Immediately thereafter, Johnny and Stanley come out of their hiding place while Andy comes down from Jennifer's bedroom upstairs flaunting her undergarments. The men then scare Matthew, who is standing outside, into joining them. Then they start taunting her about being alone and force her to drink some alcohol. Jennifer, who is scared out of her mind, apologizes to Johnny for embarrassing him the other day and begs them, crying, to leave her alone, while Matthew sits at the corner visibly upset by what they're doing to her, and Stanley films the whole ordeal. Stanley tells Matthew to rape Jennifer, but he refuses and stammers, as he tells them she likes him, and so he doesn't want to participate. Johnny then gags and chokes her with a gun, and leaves her to Andy, who proceeds to do the same. Jennifer summons her courage, grabs a bottle near her, hits Andy with it, sprays Stanley with paper spray, and runs out the door to the woods by the cabin. She keeps running for a while and runs into Earl and the town's sheriff, Sheriff Storch. Jennifer is relieved and tells them what happened and describes the men. The sheriff calms her down, tells Earl to go back to town, and assures Jennifer that she's safe as he suspects the transgressor's identity. He then drives her back to the cabin to see what's going on. When Jennifer and the sheriff get to the cabin, Jennifer is perplexed to find no one there. The sheriff does a walkthrough and finds the empty bottles and marijuana cigarettes, which leads him to believe that Jennifer may not be in the right state of mind. Jennifer tries to convince him otherwise, but the sheriff proceeds to call for backup. To Jennifer's bewilderment, the sheriff takes his time frisking her and does so inappropriately. Out of nowhere, Johnny and his friends reappear and join the sheriff in taunting her. Confused and terrified, Jennifer sobs quietly, begging them to stop and leave her alone. Stanley continues filming while the sheriff sadistically assaults her. Then Johnny threatens Matthew, saying he will stab Jennifer if he doesn't rape her, and so Matthew proceeds to kiss her as Johnny pins her down, but she slaps him away. Jennifer frantically and fiercely fights to get out of Johnny's grip that it needs 3 of the men, including the sheriff, to hold her down for Matthew. The sheriff steps out to take a call from his daughter and sweetly talks to her as Jennifer screams and fights for her life while Matthew rapes her. Then as soon as Matthew gets off her, she gets up and wanders half naked outside. However, the monsters are not ready to leave her alone. They follow her and assault her. Stanley keeps the camera rolling as the sheriff brutally sodomizes her, followed by the rest of them taking turns. When it's over, she lays there barely conscious and watches them as they triumphantly discuss her misery. Then she somehow manages to stand and slowly walks away completely naked and in utter agony. The monsters follow her to a bridge, and as the sheriff threatens her with his gun, she jumps off into the creek below and disappears. The sheriff orders them to go around looking for her, but she's nowhere to be found. He schedules for them to split up and continue to search every day until they find her dead or alive. He then orders them to immediately go to the cabin to burn her possessions and scrape her car. The sheriff then breaks Stanley's camera while screaming at him to get rid of the tape of evidence. The next day, Sheriff Storch goes to see Earl at the store to give him the keys to the Mockingbird Trail cabin and to inform him that Jennifer has left. In the coming few days, Johnny and his friends look for Jennifer, and life goes on as if nothing's happened for all the men except for Matthew, who keeps replaying what they did to Jennifer in his mind. One evening, Earl calls Sheriff Storch at home and tells him that a concerned friend of Jennifer has left a message on his machine saying that no one has seen or spoken to Jennifer in over a month. Earl urges the sheriff to call back the friend, reminding him that he was probably the last person who saw Jennifer. The next day, as Johnny and his friends sit around doing nothing as usual, Stanley informs them that his camera with the tape of the horrific rape has gone missing. Johnny freaks out and gets in a fight with Stanley over his irresponsibility. That night, he hears strange sounds. He goes to his door to check it out and finds a dead bird on his doorstep. He kicks it away and goes back inside, but it happens again. Then on the third try, instead of the dead bird, he finds Jennifer's slippers from the night of the rape and Matthew's stress rubbers, which he uses to calm himself when he gets overwhelmed. He panics and shoots blindly at the bushes behind his house, hoping to scare the perpetrator before he goes back inside. The next day, the sheriff intercepts as his wife tries to play a videotape that was just anonymously delivered. He is infuriated, immediately takes the tape, and rushes to Johnny's house, where he finds Johnny, Andy, and Stanley speculating over what happened at Johnny's house the night before, and surmising that Matthew was probably behind it, as he felt guilty, and no one has seen him for days. After hearing the case against Matthew, the sheriff agrees that Matthew might be behind the tape sent to his wife, and orders them to find and bring him as soon as possible. Later that day, Sheriff Storch takes Earl Quayle hunting. Once they get deep into the forest, the sheriff shoots the old man in the name of tying up loose ends. As Matthew sits alone, he hears his name being called from inside and runs in. There, he sees Jennifer, who is now a shadow of who she once was, and is relieved to see her alive. He stammers as he apologizes to her, and she calls him to her, telling him it wasn't his fault. He sits next to her and cries with regret, at which point she discreetly pulls out a rope, chokes him, and knocks him out. Andy and Stanley look for Matthew all over the woods. Then they start hearing a song from a distance, follow it to the abandoned, dilapidated cabin, and separate to maximize their search effort. Jennifer appears in front of Stanley, and as he runs towards her, he is caught by a bear trap she set that punctures his leg to the bone. Stanley cries out in pain. Jennifer runs behind him, hits both men, and knocks them out. Andy wakes up and finds himself tied and suspended face down above a tub. Just as he tries to make sense of this, Jennifer starts filling the tub with water. She then tortures him by dunking his face in the tub, repeating the taunts he said when he did the same thing to her. She then pours lye into the water and puts his face in it. Jennifer uses a camera to film as she ties Stanley to a tree, pins his eyebrows out with fish hooks, and covers him in fish blood while taunting him the way he taunted her. She leaves him to die as crows surround him to peck out his eyes. Jennifer then lures Johnny out of the station and knocks him out to take him to the abandoned cabin. She ties his hands to the roof of the house, spreads his legs, ties them to the floor, and gags him. She then taunts him while pulling his teeth out with pillars. Then she emasculates him as he screams from the pain and lets him bleed to death. Jennifer goes to Sheriff Storch's family, posing as his young daughter, Chastity's new teacher when he is at work. His wife calls him and lets Jennifer introduce herself over the phone. He is shocked to recognize her voice and rushes over to his house. But when he gets there, he learns that the new teacher has taken Chastity to the local park. He drives to the park and looks for Jennifer and Chastity, but can't find them. As he hopelessly returns to his car, Jennifer hits him from the back seat and knocks him out. When he comes to, He finds himself tied and bent over a table and horrifically sodomized with a shotgun. Jennifer taunts the sheriff and tells him that she was as innocent as his daughter before he defiled her. She then places the knocked out Matthew directly in front of the sheriff and ties the trigger of the shotgun to Matthew's hand. Matthew awakens by the sheriff's scream. He is shocked to see the sheriff bleeding in front of him, and as he moves to help him, the shotgun goes off through the sheriff and kills both of them. The movie concludes as Jennifer walks out, sits outside, and listens to the sound of the gun with a wry smile of payback on her face. And with that, the movie ends. I hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for amazing videos. See you in the next one.